Hi, my name is Ed Bazan, and I am a Villagomez family member.
So, when and where were you born?
May 16th, 1960, here in Houston, Texas.
And your parents, can you tell me about them?
My parents are George and Margaret Bazan. Margaret Villagomez is the one of the daughters of Agustin Villagomez, and she married my dad, George Bazan. My dad is from Tampico, Tamaulipas, Mexico. A quick, interesting story. When my dad was born here in Texas, and then as his family moved back to Mexico. But back in those days, the laws were a little different. He and one of his brothers were both born here before they moved back, so they had U.S. citizenship. And when he moved back after high school, he started going to college, taking some classes, and lo and behold, he gets drafted into the Army. He doesn't speak any English, but he's a U.S. citizen, so he's going. And because he had already been taking some college classes, engineering classes, he knew how to read blueprints. So they needed guys who could read blueprints. They put him on a construction crew and sent him to Korea to build bridges. Most people think, oh, building bridges, no big deal. Stay out of harm's way. No, the guys that on the construction crew with bridges, they get sent way up in the front so they can build bridges across the rivers and other valleys so that when the equipment with all the soldiers arrive, they can get across. So they're up there by themselves getting shot at by cannons and snipers all the time. And it was interesting. You know, he got sent way over there, didn't speak any English, but because he could read blueprints, he was one of the guys in charge. So, interesting story.
So how did he meet your mother?
Yeah, he'd come back, and actually, no, he had not come back yet. He when he was still here in Houston, a little downtown window shopping, and my mom had a part-time job dressing mannequins in the store windows, and he spotted my mom in the store window, and he was a brave man and went in there and introduced himself. So that's how all that started.
And so, what did your parents do for a living?
Lost my dad last year. For most of his life, he was in the oil and gas industry, piping design for petrochemical plants. He did that for many years. My mom, she went to school and she worked, raised kids, and went to school all at the same time. She got to be a bookkeeper, accountant, and worked for various companies over the years, keeping the books. So, yeah, in fact, she did that. She worked well past retirement age with a company here, a local company, and worked their books for many years. So, yeah, she did that for a long time.
When did she go to school?
Pardon me?
When was it that she went to school?
Back probably in the 60s and 70s. When I was a little kid growing up, she worked and she took night classes so she could learn to become an accountant.
So this is while you were really young.
Oh yeah, since I was born in 1960, I'd go to school. We were fortunate in that where we were living, 2 blocks one way was the elementary school that I went to, so I could walk home by myself 2 blocks. 2 blocks the other way, when I was a little older, was the high school, which that came in handy when I was older. When I was cutting class, I could just walk home and ditch classes and get back to the house real easy. Madison High School on the southwest part of Houston.
So that's where you grew up?
Yes, southwest Houston. We lived in a home over there for almost 20 years, and I graduated at Madison High School. Yes.
Can you describe your childhood home?
Pardon me? My childhood home? Middle class. Interesting. When we first moved there, we were the first non-white family to move in there. You know, everyone's, there's Mexicans down the street. It was interesting. You know, we was back in 1965, 66, just before I started first grade. You might remember here locally on one of the TV stations on the ABC affiliate, Dave Ward, the reporter. He lived down the street from us. Yeah, one of his sons was a classmate of my younger brother Ricky. So yeah, we knew those guys. You know, he was on the way up much faster than we were, so they weren't there very long, but that was cool. Yeah, we grew up there.
So what was the racial makeup of the neighborhood when you got here?
It was all white, you know. There are very few blacks, very few Hispanics, and that's it, just those three. So, you know, it was interesting growing up that way because, you know, we moved out of, you know, South Park, Magnolia area, and we made it over there. But it was fun. It was good, you know. Growing up, a lot of sports. My dad was always involved with me and my brothers. There was me, my younger brother Ricky, my older brother George, and my sister Becky. She was the oldest. And my dad coached us in baseball and in soccer. Always big on the soccer. He didn't know the rules of football, though he liked it. So this was his plan. Because back in those days, you know, nowadays, there's soccer everywhere. Soccer, you play year-round, lots of it. There was very little soccer back then, and my dad grew up in Mexico. He was all about the soccer. He had us playing soccer since we were 6 years old. But he had to start his own soccer team because there was one youth soccer league in the city of Houston back then, and there was no teams in our part of town. He started his own team. And, you know, me and my brothers and my cousins, and, you know, he needed to recruit a few more boys to make a full team. So he'd go and watch us when we go play Pee-wee football. And although he didn't know football, he knows athletes. And he would spy to see which boys were the most athletic. And then he'd go talk to their parents and see if they'd be interested in getting their boys to play soccer. So he could find a good athlete and he'd teach them how to play soccer. So that was a lot of fun. I played soccer all my life since I was a kid, well into my adult age. Even after I got older and stopped playing, I became a referee. And on a side note, you know, when I was younger, I wanted to be a professional soccer player. And we have relatives, you know, all over in Mexico. One of our extended relatives, Rodolfo Moncada from León, Guanajuato. I believe his wife, Rivera, is my grandfather Augustin's cousin. He used to play pro soccer in León, Guanajuato, Mexico, back in the 40s and 50s. Good player. He played for many years. And when I was 20 years old, we got an arrangement, and he hooked me up with a tryout. And it wasn't just to go down there with a one-shot deal. I trained with the reserve squad for the team in León for about 2.5 months. I didn't make it. Okay, that's cool. But I tried. I gave it a shot, and I always loved playing. It was a lot of fun. Yeah. When Major League Soccer started many years ago, back in '96, you know, I've been living up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area for many years. And I got hooked up with some guys to help promote the league. So the original team, one of the original teams up in the Dallas area was the Dallas Burn. And we formed a group of guys all over the United States. And we were all based in the cities where all the teams were at. And we were the first group of fully credentialed online sports journalists. And I was covering the Dallas Burn. So for 10 years, I did that. So I was one of the original online journalists. Nowadays, you know, anybody can get a website and do whatever you want. But back then, there was not that many. So that's my claim to fame.
How did your mom feel about soccer?
She liked it, you know. It kept us out of the house and out of her hair, you know. But it was interesting because back in those days, the uniforms were not that hot. You know, you could get a jersey and have a logo and a number printed on it, but they're very plain. So she usually would get something and sew it onto our shorts or onto our jerseys just to jazz it up a bit. So every season before the season began, my mom would be up late at night with her sewing machine getting everybody's uniform ready. So that was a lot of fun.
So what kinds of other things did your family do together?
When we were growing up, you know, our vacations, you know, we didn't have a lot of money for elaborate trips, but we were always doing things together. And, you know, Texas is a big state. And back in those days, when we traveled anywhere, it was by car. Typically, we would drive to Mexico. We would go one summer to Tampico to visit my dad's family, and another summer we would go to Leon to visit on my mom's side of the family, and back and forth. So we did that a lot. I got to know a lot of the relatives over the years. It was a lot of fun. But, you know, as you get older as a kid, you know, I don't want to go on this long 2-day drive down to Mexico. So then we started trying to do stuff here as a family, and we started doing camping trips. And I remember, you know, the first couple of times my dad would rent a tent, great big tent. You know, you could probably sleep 10 people. But we would go to a lot of the state parks around the Austin area, Inks Lake State Park, Garner State Park, and beautiful places. We always used to do that. And, you know, then after a while, we would he would rent a camper, and we started doing that. And then we were renting cabins as we got older. So we did a lot of that. So it was a lot of fun. We did that as a family.
What is your favorite memory?
Wow, there's a lot of them. She kept the family together, you know. You know, as with all families, it's not always, you know, going exactly the way you want it, but she was strong. She made all of us strong, and that was hard to do. You know, nowadays, when the going gets tough, people go in different directions. Back then, no. We were a family. We're still a family. So that's hard to do.
And your favorite memory?
He was always there coaching us on the field, you know. He was tough. He was a tough old guy, you know. He wasn't always, you know, doing things the way we wanted us. But, you know, that was Dad. But, you know, it's interesting when I talk to guys now, they remember my dad. We had you know, we lost him in November. And guys that I grew up with, they went to his funeral. They remember him. That's hard.
Do you have anything from your any memorabilia or anything?
Oh man, I got too much stuff. We never threw things away, so you know, you know, I've got stuff that I've kept over the years. That's cool. You know, a lot of little memorabilia, but it's hard to pick out any one thing. You know, we always had a lot of family, as you can see by this great big party we've got going on. And it's cool that we were able to do this again and see everyone. But, you know, growing up, we used to see a lot of family. We used to get together all the time. You know, whenever there was a little holiday, even if there wasn't a holiday, it was just, you know, a reason to get together. And you know, now, you know, I got to see a lot of cousins today and a lot of their kids that I haven't seen in many, many years. Unfortunately for me, you know, I moved to the Dallas-Fort Worth area 31 years ago. Wow. I lived 27 years here in Houston, and I moved up for a new job, and I thought, you know, I'd be up there for a few years. 31 years ago. And no, I'm not a Dallas Cowboys fan. All right?
Thank God.
Texans, Astros, Rockets. it's weird because I used to have season tickets to the Houston Oilers, and then they left, and while I was away, the Texans showed up. So it took me a couple of years to warm up to them, since that's the new team, and I was living away. But it's cool. I support them now, and I'm okay with the Cowboys and the Rangers. They're a Texas team, and I'll root for a Texas team. But my Houston teams come first.